Am I saved? I'm not saved until I have run the race and got through that narrow gate. And that goes for you too. Nobody on earth is saved yet. We who follow and obey Jesus and wish to fit through that narrow gate, we are on the way to being saved. And if we stay on that way, we are going to get through that narrow gate and then obtain our salvation. We will get the crown of life after we have got through the narrow gate. You don't get the crown of life before. I see many believers are deluded. They think they're saved now, and so they're very arrogant. They say, I'm saved and sealed, and they go and live on the broad path with the sinners. But, dear friends, it's a delusion, because they have not got through that narrow gate. And when they reach the end of the broad way, doing all the things the world loves, sport, movies, entertainment, and computer games, all these things, sin, they'll find at the end of the broad way lies the broad gate to hell. And they'll realize they were deluded, because the narrow gate just is not there. But if we want to obtain the crown of salvation that awaits he who overcomes, and if we want to eat from the tree of life that Jesus said we would eat if we overcome, then we have to strive on the narrow way, stay true to the way that goes through the narrow gate. There's no use saying you're on that way when you're just doing your sin and living the way of the world, having fun in the world, thinking you're on the way to salvation. We have to dedicate to the narrow way to get through that narrow gate. Jesus said that he who overcomes will eat from the tree of life. But he hasn't eaten from the tree of life on earth. No. While you're on earth, you haven't eaten from the tree of life. You haven't got the crown of salvation. You aren't saved yet. Many will try to enter the narrow gate, said Jesus, and few will be able to. Many will not be able to. Were they saved? No, they weren't saved. Were they on the way to salvation? Yes, they were. Why didn't they get through that narrow gate? I don't know. They must have been living on the broad way. They must have had sin in their life. They must have given up. They must have gone back to sin. They must have quit because they didn't get through the narrow gate. How about the few that got through the narrow gate that Jesus spoke of? He said, few will make it through the narrow gate. Who are they? Aren't they who follow Jesus, obey him, overcome till the end? Beat their flesh into submission daily, so that it will not disqualify them for the prize, like Paul said. And Jesus keeps saying over again in Revelations chapter 2 and 3, that he who overcomes, he shall eat from the tree of life. He who overcomes shall have his name not erased from the book of life. He who overcomes shall have his name written in heaven. Overcome. You can't get through that narrow gate unless you abide with Jesus and you overcome till the end. There's no use going and getting out your computer games and thinking you're on the narrow way to life. There's no use going out and watching your horror movies, joining the world in sin, speaking lies, swearing, cursing, drinking, watching sport, following sport, all this stuff. It's all of the world. There's no use you doing that if you want to make it to heaven. People think that they can do what they like and they're still saved. What a lie. Unless we're on the narrow way, we will not get through the narrow gate. Jesus said there's not another way over the sheep pen into the fold. There is only one way, and it was through Christ, through the door. So if you want to be saved, and you want to obtain your salvation, you've got to do what Jesus says. He said that he who overcomes will eat from the tree of life and be given the crown of life. He said, without me you can do nothing. He said, branches in me that don't bear fruit will be cut off and thrown into the fire. Jesus is serious about this, friend. that if you want to enter his kingdom, you have to obey him. You have to walk his path until the end. Only then will you enter. Don't be deceived by Satan and find out too late that you are at the gate of the broad path and hell is right over the lip of it and you're about to be thrown in there. Come away from the broad path. Follow Jesus and obey him on the narrow way. The only way that leads through the narrow gate is if you abide with him all the way until the end.